Hello everyone, welcome to Recapping Stories. Today we'll be checking a movie called Skeleton Key. Warning, there will be spoilers. At a nursing hospital, a young worker, Caroline, reads to a patient, witnessing when he dies. She gets upset when the hospital staff seems untouched by his passing and no family member comes to pick up his belongings. When she finds several other similar boxes in a dumpster, Caroline decides to quit. Later, she complains about this apparent lack of care to her friend, Jill, while showing her an ad seeking a personal caretaker that has caught her interest, as it gives her the necessary hours to start nursing school, good payment, and a chance to help someone in her own way. Jill worries about how this work might be changing Caroline, but her friend replies there is nothing wrong with a little change. The next day, Caroline arrives at the secluded mansion from the ad. The family's lawyer, Luke, greets her and introduces her to the owners, Violet Devereux and her husband, Ben Devereux, who became paralyzed after a stroke. Violet's reception is rather cold, and she tells Luke that Caroline will not understand the house. Her behavior makes Caroline reconsider her decision, only changing her mind due to Luke's insistence that Ben needs help and that she's perfect for the job. Jill helps her pack her things, and they exchange a warm goodbye. As she returns to the mansion, Caroline stops briefly at a gas station, where a few things seem strange to her, such as the line of brick dust at the door, the animal bones, and other talisman-like items. However, she brushes it off after paying for the gas. Arriving at the mansion, Caroline starts to settle in, and notices that the mirrors around seem to have been taken down recently. She goes to see Ben, who suddenly grabs her wrist and stares at her intensely, until Violet comes in to give him his medicine. She explains to Caroline what her tasks while caring for Ben will be like, telling her to not bother with the housework, as Violet's the only one who knows how to do it. Caroline asks her how long she has lived in the house, to which Violet replies she and her husband bought it years ago from two siblings, Martin and Grace, whose photo she shows Caroline. Behind it she finds another photo of the siblings as children, this time with two servants, identified as Papa Justify and Mama Cecile. Violet also gives Caroline a skeleton key that opens most of the doors in the mansion, and when inquired about the absence of mirrors, she simply replies that she doesn't need reminders of her age and asks Caroline about her family. The young woman reveals her mother left when she was a child, and her father died last year. The next day, the three of them are in the garden when Violet asks Caroline to fetch some seed packets from the attic. Once there, Caroline hears a strange noise and finds a rattling door, which she tries to open, but the skeleton key doesn't work. Curious, she inquires Violet about it, but the woman claims that the room has been locked ever since she moved into the house, and she almost seems to be avoiding the subject. Caroline confirms that Ben was in the attic when he had his stroke. It rains heavily that night, and Caroline is awakened by loud noises. When she goes to see if Ben is alright, she finds his room empty, and the man is nowhere in sight. She frantically searches for him, eventually finding him on the roof, trying to crawl away until he falls. After calling for Violet, Caroline runs out of the house to help Ben. When she returns to get his wheelchair, she finds "Help me" written on his bedsheet, which she hides in the closet. Once again, Ben stares at Caroline. Luke comes by the next day to update Ben's will, and Caroline tries to show him what she found, but the bedsheet is clean, with no sign of the message from before. Still, she can't shake the impression that Ben might be trying to ask her for help. While Violet is busy sweeping, Caroline sneaks into the attic and tries to pick the door to the mysterious room with a hairpin, finding there was something inside the lock that prevented the skeleton key from opening it. Once inside, she finds all sorts of objects, such as bones, a jar with a human organ, recordings, and a blonde mannequin with the eyes and mouth sealed shut. Caroline also finds a hollowed book full of photos of Papa Justify and Mama Cecile, as well as a sheet instructing how to make a circle of protection. As she examines a strange ring, Violet comes in searching for her, and she hides. Luckily, she is not found and sneaks out of the room with a recording labeled Conjury of Sacrifice, which she plays later in the privacy of her apartment in town. The record seems to be of an incantation, likely recited by Papa Justify. Jill catches her hearing the record, and after Caroline tells her about the room in the attic, says she probably found a hoodoo room. Different from voodoo, which is a religion, hoodoo is pure magic, which can't affect you if you don't believe in it. Learning that Jill's aunt is into such things, Caroline asks to be taken to a shop she goes to. Although Jill is hesitant, she complies, but refuses to go inside. Even if she doesn't believe in it, she also doesn't mess around with it. The next day, Violet is furious when she finds a mirror that Caroline placed in Ben's room. However, Caroline doesn't back down, and demands to know the history behind the room in the attic, threatening to quit otherwise. Seeing no other option, Violet agrees. 90 years ago, a cruel banker named Thorpe lived in the house, along with his family and the 2 servants who have been mentioned already, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile, and the room in the attic used to be theirs. Thorpe was unaware that his servants were practitioners of hoodoo until one night when, after a party, he and his guests found Justify and Cecile trying to teach hoodoo to Thorpe's children. Enraged and drunk, Thorpe and his guests killed Papa Justify and Mama Cecile by hanging them and setting fire to the corpses, a crime for which they never paid due to being rich. Years later, however, Thorpe went bankrupt, killed his wife and himself, something the people along the bayou believe to be Justify and Cecile's revenge from beyond the grave. The children stayed in the house until they sold it, but never told Violet or her husband why they kept the room locked. Violet claims the servants' spirits can be seen in the mirrors, and states that whatever they did to her husband, she won't let them do it to her. Caroline remains skeptical that the house is haunted, but while giving Ben a bath, she shows him his reflection on a small mirror, and the man has a distressed reaction. Apologizing for what she has done, Caroline calms him down. Later, she goes to town on the pretense of going shopping, heading to the place Jill showed her earlier. There she meets a woman, Mama Cynthia, and asks her about the dust brick, also present at her door. According to Mama Cynthia, if you place a line of it on a threshold, someone who means you harm cannot cross it. Following the idea that those spells can only work if you believe in them, Caroline then asks if someone who believes to be sick because of hoodoo could also believe that hoodoo would cure him. Mama Cynthia notes that someone has been working roots on Caroline, then gives her a few things along with instructions of what to do. Hearing about Caroline's little shopping spree, Jill is baffled and unconvinced when Caroline compares this to psychosomatic treatment. Seeing her insistence, Jill expresses her concern that her friend is getting too attached, due to her own regret for not being there for her father when he died, as back then Caroline was on the road, helping some friends with their band. Her determination not changing, Caroline does the ritual that night after seeing Violet asleep in front of the television. Despite her claims to not believe in hoodoo, we see Caroline getting more and more involved with it. The spell seems to work, as Ben manages to say her name, whispering to her to get him out of there. However, Violet wakes up and goes to check on the 2 of them. At the same time, Ben starts to struggle. Caroline hurries to hide the tools she used for the ritual, and as Violet opens the door, Ben points at her, terrified. That night, Caroline has a nightmare, filled with strange images, including lips being sealed shut, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile, with the words of Papa's Justify record being repeated over and over. She wakes up and lies down again to try to go back to sleep, when she sees in the mirror someone leaving her room, but finds no one around when she tries to investigate. Finally having enough, Caroline prepares to leave, but changes her mind upon seeing Ben and remembering her own father. She decides to go to Luke in the hopes that he can help her, showing him photos of the things she found in the attic, but he dismisses her worries. However, he goes with her to see the last girl who worked for Violet, Hayley. She tells Caroline that whatever happened to Ben was done by Violet herself, and when Caroline points out that hoodoo can't hurt you if you don't believe it, Haley then advises her to leave the house before she starts to believe in it. On their way back, Caroline asks Luke to stop as they approach the gas station. Hearing a record playing and recognizing the voice as being Papa Justifies, Caroline goes inside and finds a blind woman. When Caroline mentions she has a record labeled Conjure of Sacrifice, the woman replies that she wouldn't say so if they were true. This record is rumored to be a way Papa Justify found to prolong his own life by sacrificing someone else and taking the years they have left. Now convinced that Violet's planning to kill Ben, Caroline hurries back to the mansion as Violet's preparing dinner. She gets a large book from a drawer, which is revealed to be a hoodoo book. In her room, Caroline cannot find the record anywhere and places brick dust on her doorway, calling for Violet and trying to get the woman to enter. But Violet doesn't do so, confirming Caroline's suspicions that she means to hurt her. Caroline slips sedatives in Violet's tea as they dine together, confronting the woman about her plan to kill her husband. Violet falls from her chair and tries to make a spell, but faints. Caroline grabs the paper from her hand, seeing the spell as a circle for protection. She finds the record and the bedsheets, as well as strands of her hair. She helps Ben to get in her car and tries to leave, but the gates are firmly locked. Meanwhile, Violet wakes up, gets a rifle, and searches for the two of them. As they cannot leave the mansion, Caroline hides Ben in the shed, promising to come back for him. Caroline manages to escape in a rowing boat, as Violet tries to stop her. Caroline rushes to Luke's house, telling him what happened and asking for help. He gets a call from Violet and leaves the room to record it as evidence. Hearing a familiar song playing, Caroline sees a record identical to Violet's, as well as several beginner's books regarding the practice of law and wills, along with many photos of herself. As a terrible suspicion arises in her mind, she finds a ring identical to the one she saw in the attic, and a skeleton key much like her own. Before she can react, Luke attacks her, strangling her until she loses consciousness. Caroline comes to in Luke's car, bound and gagged, as he takes her back to the mansion. Caroline struggles, realizing she's the one they plan to sacrifice. Violet pressures her to reveal where Ben is. Remembering the brick dust in the entrance of her room, making it a safe place, Caroline pretends defeat and replies that Ben is in the shed. As Violet goes to fetch him, she convinces Luke to let her get her father's picture, then slams herself against him and escapes. Caroline leaves through a window, frees herself and starts spreading brick dust around and inside the house to protect herself as the couple hunts her down. Violet suddenly appears on the second floor and blows dust on her face, briefly blinding her. They struggle until Caroline pushes Violet off the stairs and quickly grabs a phone, calling the cops and Jill for help, desperately whispering to her friend that everything is true before the line is cut. Violet comes upstairs in the house elevator, and Caroline has nowhere to go except the room in the attic, where a circle of candles and mirrors has been prepared. We see the power of suggestion and influence at play, as instead of trying to defend herself from an old woman with broken legs with the knife she finds or in any other way, Caroline seeks to do so in the same way that she's being attacked, and proceeds to make the protection circle from the paper she earlier stole from Violet, proving that she does believe in hoodoo enough to rely on it for her safety. Arriving at the attic, her legs broken, Violet appears unafraid when Caroline claims the woman cannot harm her due to the circle. Mockingly, Violet asks her who gave her this particular spell in the first place, revealing that what the circle actually protects is Caroline from leaving it. They were waiting for her to believe, as the spell doesn't work otherwise. Even as Caroline claims that she doesn't believe, she doesn't try to leave the circle, or, despite her claims, still thinks that she can't. As Caroline keeps screaming that she does not believe, Violet pushes a mirror at her, where flashes of Grace, Violet, and Mama Cecile can be seen. The mirror slams against Caroline, and she faints along with Violet. The candles go out, and for a moment the house is in silence. Once she wakes up, apparently calm, Caroline picks up Violet's cigarettes and starts to smoke, thanking her. Luke comes up, addressing her as Cecile, and asking if she's alright, to which Caroline replies that she's fine now. calling him Justify. The spell is actually meant for the souls to switch bodies, which is how Mama Cecile and Papa Justify have stayed alive all those years, having first transferred their souls to the bodies of Grace and Martin. As Cecile says, sacrifice is sometimes more of a trait. Trapped in Violet's body, Caroline comes to, realizing what has happened as she touches the face that's now hers, crying to be let out just like Ben did earlier. Cecily gives her a potion that simulates a stroke. Morning arrives and an ambulance takes Caroline and Ben, who we now know is the real Luke, whose body has been stolen by Justify. Jill arrives and Cecily pretends to be sad by what happened, suggesting that Jill drives to the hospital and they'll meet her there. Justify makes a display of condolences, saying how much Caroline meant to the old couple, revealing they have left her everything, including the house. As the movie ends, the now old Caroline and Luke hopelessly look at each other, while Cecily places her old ring on her finger, and we see the photo of the real owners of the house, who are also the ghosts haunting it.